Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie Morey. Welcome to today's 21st Century Legacy Letters Virtual Book Club launch. It's the first episode, and we are so glad you're here. Anyway, there are about 6 or 7 of you who are going to join us live. And since I don't see you yet in the room, I would like to just go over some housekeeping, and that is today we're going to talk about chapters 1 and 2. So if you're catching this on the replay, today is chapters 1 and 2, also including the introduction, because I got a lot out of reading just the introduction. And then I have some special co-hosts, and I'll bring them on board in just a few moments. And in the meantime, I'd like to welcome everyone who is joining us, okay? I want to talk about, first of all, this amazing book because one of my co-hosts, Dr. Becky, she already finished the book, and Dr. Becky recommended that we go through it slowly. So I am taking that to heart because I thought, let's just finish the book in 1 month. And Dr. Becky's saying, we might want to go through it more slowly because it's so rich. And in fact, Dr. Becky said that she's going to go through it a second time. And then Steve Garvin, who's another co-host today, Steve is a big fan of Brene Brown, and Steve likes Brene Brown's work, and he's very familiar with Brene Brown. So if you aren't yet familiar with Brene Brown, you're going to get to know her today. Okay, well, I want to share with you just from the introduction some of the things that I got right away. So I'm just going to list this down for you who are watching the replay. Here are 10 guideposts that Brene Brown included in the introduction, which is part of her book, her other book. And she has 10 guideposts to wholehearted living. Number 1, cultivating authenticity. It's letting go of what people think. Just that right there is huge because, I still need to be more self-aware, and I need to always cultivate this authenticity because lots of times, especially when I used to be such a people pleaser, I would just want to do things just to please other people. But it's really being my authentic self and letting go of what other people think. And that's one guidepost. A second guidepost is cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism. Oh my word, this is huge because a lot of folks who want to do something big, maybe write a book or maybe go on stage or maybe produce an online course or perhaps be a speaker, before they even launch out, they stop themselves because they want everything to be just so. They want everything to be perfect. So number 2 is cultivating self-compassion. None of us on earth are perfect. So we just have to really let that sink in and just admit that we're never going to be perfect. And if there's an imperfection in my books or your books, it's okay because people will just read your concepts, read your ideas, especially if you're a thought leader and an influencer, okay? That's number 2. Number 3, cultivating a resilient spirit. What does that mean? It's letting go of numbing and powerlessness. How many of us have fallen into this trap of, I don't want to face this particular pain, and so I'm just going to numb it by maybe watching something on TV or maybe watching a movie, or maybe, I don't know, some people turn to drinking or maybe some kind of addiction. So it's cultivating a resilient spirit where we are letting go of numbing ourselves and really facing and letting ourselves feel. And even though we feel powerless, just allowing ourselves to feel that and going through that. That's huge. Okay, number 4. What's number 4? It is cultivating gratitude and joy. That's big. Letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. Whenever we hit storms in our lives, because that's going to happen, it's inevitable. We live in a fallen world and we are going to encounter trials, tribulations. We're going to encounter storms. We're going to encounter things that will test us, right? It could be a person, it could be an event, it could be something that has to do with our circumstances. So whatever that is, number 4 is big. Cultivate cultivating gratitude and joy, letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark, fear of the unknown. Number 5, cultivating intuition and trusting faith. Now, what is that? It's letting go of the need for certainty. I know that there are a lot of peak performance coaches and just high performance coaches who really teach about certainty. You have to have this certainty. Well, there are certain situations in life where we don't have that certainty, where we cannot be certain, where we have to step into the realm of faith, believing in the divine, believing in our creator, believing in God, and letting go of needing to be certain all the time. That's huge. Number 6, here's another thing that I really found valuable. Number 6, cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. All of us are unique, and it's one thing to be striving for excellence, or to want to be excellent, and it's a whole nother ballgame to compare my work to somebody else's work. And if we do that, if we're in the comparison game, we'll never get anything created, because we're going to compare ourselves to somebody else who may have been doing it longer or who's doing it better. And so people will not hear your unique voice. They'll not hear your unique message because we're comparing ourselves. Here's something that we've been teaching our children lately, because they are comparing themselves to each other, or they're comparing themselves to other kids. And here's what we ask them to do. Please do not compare yourself to others. Please do not compare yourselves to anyone else. Do you know who you're supposed to compare yourself to? And they ask me, who is it, Mommy? And I tell them, the only person you're going to compare yourself to is yourself yesterday. Are you better today than yesterday? If you are, good. If you aren't, then let's make some tweaks. Let's make some revisions, right? So don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to yourself yesterday. Are we improving in our character? Are we increasing in our gratefulness? Are we increasing in our abundance mindset and letting go of the scarcity mindset, etc.? Number 7, cultivating play and rest. Oh my, this is huge. We are such a productivity-driven society. We want success, success, success. And of course, success doesn't come if we don't work, right? But there's a balance as well. It's cultivating play and rest. And I like the fact that Steve Garvin, who's one of my co-hosts, he is cultivating playfulness and creativity. So cultivate play and rest, meaning letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol, letting go of productivity as self-worth. My goodness, this book is really incredible. So that's why I really listened to what Dr. Becky was saying to me when she said that it's better to really go through it slowly than just go through it really quickly, just to be able to say, I read the book. This book is about transformation, and that's what we want. We want to be transformed. Number 8, cultivating calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. I don't know if you've been around worrywarts, but it depletes my energy. I just get so depleted when I am around people who are just always either anxious or worried, or they're worried about tomorrow, they're worried about whatever it is, they're worried about how they look to other people, they're worried about whatever, right? So anyway, that's number 8. Number 9, cultivating meaningful work. What does that mean? It's letting go of self-doubt and supposed to. I'm supposed to be in this career because my mom and dad told me to. I'm supposed to do this task because I feel like I'm supposed to do that. It's just whatever reason it is. And letting go of that supposed to, and really cultivating meaningful work. Let me just share this. Some folks may not be called to incredible financial wealth. They may not be called to be billionaires, and that is quite okay, right? As long as they are pursuing the destiny for which they have been created for, as long as they're pursuing the purpose for which they've been put on this earth, as long as they're pursuing what they're meant to do, that's what counts. So it's cultivating meaningful work. What are they meant to do? And that will be meaningful to them and to the people that they're called to serve. And then number 10, last but not least, cultivating laughter, song, and dance. I love being around our daughter because she's a party waiting to happen. She loves dance. She loves making up songs. And so when I hear her singing, I do my best to cultivate that. I say, I tell her, I love hearing you sing. and then I'll ask her to sing a song for me, just make something up. And so really cultivating laughter and song and dance. And, I myself, I have been, I mean, I used to play guitar. I mean, I still play the guitar, but I haven't picked it up in a while. But when I do, and when I hear guitar music, it really just refreshes my soul. And so I need to do more of that, cultivate laughter, song, and dance. I love dancing with my husband, so not, we need to do that more often, but it's really being intentional about doing this. What does it mean? It means letting go of being cool and always in control. When my husband and I are dancing, we're not very good, but who cares? Like last Saturday, we were at a wedding, and we were out there just dancing, and it didn't matter whether we looked really good or not. It was just, I just enjoyed the moment with my husband dancing, right? So anyway, I'm going to share some more, but I want Dr. Becky to come on and share the insights that Dr. Becky took away from this book, Daring Greatly. And again, we're talking about chapters 1 and 2 as well as the introduction, which is completely packed, like the 10 guideposts. That's from the introduction. So I'd like to welcome to this virtual book club meeting Dr. Becky Slabo. Hi, Dr. Becky. Good to be with you.
Oh, it's good to be here. Just a little tag on to the dancing at a wedding. With my son's wedding, I danced with my husband. It wasn't good. It was not good. So I did say, he does the little this and the this. So it was like, no, we're going to go do a dance class. So give us some grace out there I mean, good job for you. What you're, just get over yourself and have fun. That's really the main thing, other than Gary needing dance classes. Okay, exactly, we're done. Exactly. Silly. Okay, so the first thing, this is an awesome book, you guys, and I don't know, I hope you guys are enjoying it and getting a lot out of it. I sure did. But I wanted to share with you the first thing that Brene talked about. I don't know if you can see me very well, but I'm going to read it. And it's vulnerability is the core, the heart. I don't know if you can see it. All right, let me go. Here we go. The core, the heart, the center of meaningful human experiences. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Otherwise, we know that our feelings would be weakness, and that's not true. Our feelings are what they are. So the application here would be a greater clarity for living a meaningful life begins with having an open and receptive heart. All right? Vulnerability will sound like and feel like courage. So they go together. You think it might be weak, but it's actually there's a courage, and I'm going to give you an example of that. So the next step, acknowledge your vulnerability. All right? Acknowledge it. You've identified it. Now you get to acknowledge it. That's different than IDing it. All right? So you guys can't see me here, but I'm going to put this up.
I can see it. It's pretty good.
Oh, good. When you don't acknowledge how and where we are tender, we're more at risk of being hurt. Isn't that the truth? Being hurt translates into fear and disengagement and yearning for courage. So the key here, so let me see if I can do this, guys, is what you acknowledge and agree with will grow within you. All right?
Ooh, let me type that in the chat room.
Yeah. What you acknowledge and agree with will grow within you, and that's something that has really stayed with me. I'm going to give you an example now, my short story of when in '08 my husband got laid off in the tech crash, and so we had to do a drastic change in our lifestyle, and we moved to a small low-income apartment. We were from Phoenix, and from a luxury home, and then here we are in a 3-story, 3 flights up, tiny apartment in the corner. And what happened? Well, I asked that question as I'm unpacking in the kitchen, and I almost lost it. It's like, where did we go? What happened, Lord? I just stopped, and I felt like I was going to break down. And that was vulnerable. I was being real, I was being truthful, but then out of that, I started thinking, I'm not going to lose it. Instead, what I'm going to do is thank God for this moment that I get to be with Him. So with that, I started singing How Great Thou Art, which is a family song. My mom sang it, my grandpa loved it. And as I started singing it, now I'm giving you guys some strategies here and some keys here to think about and ponder, is as I started just thinking about how grateful that this really is an opportunity to grow, what happened was courage started to arise. The next thing immediately after that, I had to go do some wash real quick. We were moving. The wash machine that was out on the balcony where they had it wasn't working. But because of courage, this is going to sound weird, but I went to the wash machine and I said, I've had enough. I threw the wash in. It didn't work. So I tried it again. I was angry. I was hot. I was tired. And I prophesied to that darn washing machine, you need to work. All right? So we take out that courage. Here I was in one place, nowhere, exhausted, tired. The washing machine ended up working. And then at the same time, the doorbell rang, and the guy delivered me another washing machine. And then I said, no, I've healed this one. I mean, it was just comedy. It ended up being fun. Last part of it, Mormons were at the door, elder juniors, 18 years old, with their little pen thing, and they came in, prayed for us. I prophesied to them. They were shook up. End of story. So what does that tell you? To summarize, it went from I was shaking in the kitchen into having a grateful heart, a wholehearted heart, which is the opposite of scarcity. There's never enough, never enough. But wholeheartedness is at the very core of vulnerability, you guys, and it's worthiness. It's facing uncertainty, exposure, emotional risk, and knowing that you are really enough just where you are. You're enough. You've got enough just where you are.
Wow.
So the application, here's the short application, live out of your enough, Jackie. Live out of, be strategically grateful for each moment, because your life is in the now. For your now is your future, and so it's your moment as well. It's together. So live out of what God says you are. Journal, connect, share with others, listen to others, and be the storehouse of blessings. Because it's, the spirit of poverty, the scarcity, you take it and transform it. And I gave you my story and my example, and I hope somebody in the chat is hearing this. So, and we can talk about it. But anyways, Jackie, what do you think?
I love that. That's so good, because it's really, thank you so much for sharing your story, Dr. Becky. It just brings so much encouragement to anyone who's experiencing a lot of trials right now, or any kind of storm you're experiencing. Dr. Becky, you have brought hope, you have brought faith, and you have brought in what you shared what you did to develop courage. You went from feeling really frustrated to being grateful, and then to being wholehearted, and then having courage. That's huge. That is so huge. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Becky, are you going to show us your book?
What, Dreams with Destiny? Is that, or this one, or what do we? Okay, that one, you've got it.
Talking about the identity thieves or something like that.
Yeah, it's with, well, you've got it handy. I don't have it in front of me. When Dreams to Destiny Collide, that one, you guys, is chapter 2. Talks about how to spot the identity thieves. And then I give you applications, and I give you keys and strategies of how to walk through not just the hard times, but even the joyous times. I mean, both. I mean, there's enough. If you're here on Earth and you're breathing, there's enough for you. Like Jackie said, and what Brene said, there's enough here for us. We can bless, and we can be encouraged.
Wow, so, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome, Dr. Becky. Thank you. So, folks, that's from Dr. Becky's book, When Dreams and Destiny Collide, God is Messaging You. And chapter 2 here is about identity thieves. So read that chapter, get this book, read that chapter, and it'll really help you as you go through this book, Daring Greatly. Thank you so much, Dr. Becky. I want to bring on Steve Garvin. So Steve, if you are here now, please unmute yourself and come back onto the camera. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share. There you are. Okay, Steve. Are you there? You are. Hi, Steve. There you are. Okay, Steve. I want to hear your takeaways from this book, please. I mean, you're a big fan of Brene Brown, so I'm really looking forward to the masculine perspective of reading this book.
I don't know if I can speak for all men, but I can give my perspective. So, first of all, Brene Brown's approach to vulnerability, and she, one of the things I really like about it is that throughout the book, she is, you know, she's coming from a very revealing perspective. She isn't afraid to say, you know, how terrified she was when she got up on the stage at TED and shared her experience and how terrified she was, you know, being kind of the keynote speaker at the end of that event. Lost, are you okay? And so she's just really personable. My story is kind of similar to in some respect, actually. And you talked about earlier the 10 guideposts or the guidelines for knowing you're on track, right?
Yes.
Was numbing yourself, and is that I was numbing myself several years ago, and honestly still struggle with to some extent today, is just work, and which is why I focus now on play and creativity, because you know, when you focus so much on working all the time, and I've been known, and honestly, it's only been recently that I've stopped doing this, but I'd work from, you know, 8 a.m. until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you know, and it's just getting about playful, creative person, and also to go off the idea of, you know, it's never enough. I mean, I could never work enough, I could never make enough money, I could never, you know, yada yada. And recognize that right now, as I am right here, I'm enough. You know, then we can start putting priority upon ourselves, which I think we're really reluctant to do. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier about being a people pleaser. You know, when our whole focus is outside of ourselves, then we tend to forget about ourselves, and we don't risk being vulnerable. The thing that was really, the book is just so full of great nuggets, but that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to be who we are, and to have the courage to do that, and to recognize that vulnerability isn't a weakness, is that it's actually a strength, show up and be authentic in life, then we can have the time to spend with our family. You know, when I was working insane hours, you know, my family never saw me because, I mean, I was always working. And so fortunately, I've got a really great family, and, you know, we have a great relationship, but I really numbing myself in that way, and kind of putting myself in that energy. You know, I missed out on some really great experiences because I was so busy doing that. And now that I've changed, and I'm really embracing more the spirit of play and creativity, funny, my life more full, but also the important things in my life have become much more, that when you get rid of like all the junk, I don't think I'm doing anything less than I was doing when I was working, you know, 15 hours a day. I think I'm still getting the same amount of stuff done generally, but I'm finding that time and those limits to get the other really important stuff done. So I really am enjoying this book and getting a lot of value out of, you know, Brene Brown. I think she's a rock star.
Wow.
One of the last things that I heard, and I'm actually listening to the book as an audio book, but one of the last things that I heard was talking about how she's environment in her family where they're free to talk about shameful experiences and being vulnerable with one another. You know, I mean, I think we're so conditioned to not allow for that. You know, we have to, even within our own families, we have to show this great exterior of having it all together. But when we're free to show kind of our foibles and our weaknesses and our struggles for our family to be whole and to have that wholeheartedness.
Wow, Steve, that's amazing. You know, I really appreciate you because it's coming from you who are you're a man, and you're I can see and sense you've grown in your vulnerability and just sharing with us how you used to numb yourself with work. And I think I've done that, where if there's something that's happening, I don't want to deal with it, I'm just going to work, right? And so that's big, that's huge what you shared. So
Yeah.
thank you very, very much, Steve. I love your perspective. I like the fact that you're a Brene Brown fan and you're getting a lot out of this book. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. I want to share also in chapter 1, she talks about scarcity. And she says the scarcity is so in our culture. She says scarcity is the never enough problem. It's never blank enough. It's never good enough. It's, you know, you and I are never good enough. You and I are never perfect enough. You and I are never thin enough. You and I are never successful enough. You and I are never smart enough. You and I are never safe enough. You and I are never extraordinary enough. And with this scarcity mindset, which in our culture is really pervasive, and we wake up and we say, I didn't get enough sleep. So that right there from the get-go, as she points out in the book, is a scarcity mindset, right? So from that chapter, here's my takeaway. I need to be more self-aware of my scarcity thoughts and immediately cultivate gratitude. So say, for example, I only got X number of hours sleep when I should have gotten Y hours of sleep. I'll wake up and I'll say, I'm grateful for the number of hours I slept last night, right? So instead of scarcity, I'm going to cultivate gratitude. Gratitude will immediately get me out of scarcity thinking. And then in chapter 2, she debunked the vulnerability myth. Myth number 1, vulnerability is weakness. Myth number 2, I don't do vulnerability. And that's why I appreciate Steve, because he is very vulnerable. He's a man. I really appreciate that about Steve. So there are men who say, I don't do vulnerability. And that robs men of really connecting deeply with their wives or with other men who can really help them through whatever it is they're going through. It really robs people of connection, which is what we're supposed to be doing, right? She also pointed out myth number 3, vulnerability is letting it all hang out. Myth number 4, we can go it alone. These are such myths. And so for me, my takeaway is this. In chapter 2, she talked about, you know, how she defined vulnerability. So she said vulnerability is, and she had this whole list of people answers that people said, you know, like she defined vulnerability as, what is it? An uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So for me, that was my actionable idea. I wrote down on my journal, vulnerability for me is, and I'm going to share it with you. Here's my journal right here. Vulnerability for me is sharing about my past without shame and from a position of having been healed and delivered. Vulnerability for me is sharing about our family challenges with our trusted parenting and marriage mentors. Vulnerability is sharing my feelings with my husband, children, friends, and mentors. And vulnerability is being accountable. So for me, when I'm accountable, I open up areas of my life that I want to open up to that particular person I'm accountable to, right? So that's when I really want to be vulnerable. And in another chapter, Brene Brown's going to share with you and I that vulnerability doesn't mean spilling out everything to everybody. That is not vulnerability. That's desperation. Vulnerability is sharing with people that you already had or have developed that trust in. You trust them and they trust you. So anyway, I want to give Dr. Becky and Steve one last chance to just share with you from the heart their final thoughts. Dr. Becky, any final thoughts, please, Dr. Becky, and then I'm going to go to Steve.
Sure. Well, I just put it in the chat bar here. What we know matters. This is from Brene Brown, which is really good. But who we are matters more. You know, when we move out, when we're not in vulnerability, and we can embrace it, we can acknowledge it, what happens is that we really get to understand just how incredible we are as human beings. So I think that's what the thing that I got out of this book was, what place point are you coming from? Because she does go in on the second chapter on shame, and so if you don't get the vulnerability right, then you do go into the sabotages, you do go into those places of shame, or disconnect is what she had said as well. So I guess that really spoke to me, was, you know, that step on what we know may matter, but who we are, from the place of knowing that we are worthy, we are lovable, we are, you know, we have enough. That's a healing in itself, Jackie. So that's what my takeaway is.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Becky. Huge. Who we are matters the most. And one, I'm going to give you the final word. Steve, go ahead, sir.
Kind of off that same idea, and especially about the disconnecting part, one of the things that really struck me was how Brene talked about that one of the most shameful things we can do, or the most things that causes the greatest sense of shame, is being disengaged from somebody. You know, when we've had a relationship with someone and suddenly it's not there anymore, and that can show up in lots of different ways. But when we, and my takeaway from that is just, you know, to make sure that I keep my relationship strong, that, you know, not only just with my family, which of course is critical to me, but also with my associates and friends and so forth, that, you know, we keep those relationships alive and vibrant. Forget about that with, you know, all the distractions we have. So you have to be really conscious of doing that.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so very much, Steve. That was very important. So, folks, if you didn't catch that, please watch just rewind. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this the initial virtual book club meeting, and we look forward to being with you again next week. We look forward to diving in to chapter 3. I think chapter 3 alone is huge. I mean, if we combine 3 and 4, that's a lot of reading for one, and it's just a lot of meat. So let's just do chapter 3 next week. Look forward to being with you again, and I'd love for Steve and Dr. Becky to be with me, if that's okay with them, and if it's not, it's totally fine with me too. But I will reach out to you again, Dr. Becky and Steve. I'll reach out to you to see if you would like to be my co-hosts. And in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I do hope that you get this book. I'm just going to pop it up in the, there we go. So if you're in the chat room, it's going to be there, and just get your copy now, because it's, even if you're behind, so to speak, just diving into the chapters with us and hearing our takeaways, hearing our actionable ideas should really help you as you dig into the book. All right? So thank you so much, Dr. Becky. Thank you so much for being with me, and Steve. And thank you, Steve, for being with me, and Dr. Becky. And for everyone who's watching, thank you so much for watching live and on the replay. Look forward to connecting again soon. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.
Thank you.